This conference will now be recorded.
Well, very good morning. Good morning. So what kind of architecture does Git follows? Distributed version control system architecture. So the advantage with DVS is, what's the advantage? Yeah, we can load the we can distribute the load so on the remote server to the local repositories. So we have a remote repository which is a Git or GitHub repository, and that repository load can be distributed to the local repositories of the users or developers, right? So load balance or load distribution. Right. So what are the steps as a developer I follow if I want to push the code to the repository? Git clone. So why do we clone it? Copy the remote repository website to get the working copy. So if you want to get the working copy, just clone it first. And secondly, we can just do the modifications on the working copy. Make sure you do project related modifications on the working copy. Only, see, remember, you must be in the working copy. Okay. So why in the working copy? Why not outside of the working copy? Because so if you are not in the working copy, the changes won't be applied, cannot be added to the cache, or else the changes cannot be committed to the working copy. As you know that every repository maintains a cache, so you cannot add them to the cache. So just you can create files, or else you can just delete files, or you can just modify some files. You can do some operations on it. And thirdly, what is the next step? Yeah, git add. So we call it staging or unstaging. We'll talk about that today. And then the fourth is commit. So commit, and then finally git push. So this is the life cycle. So developers follows if they want to push the code to the remote repository. Okay. And what is another type of architecture repositories follows apart from DBCS architecture, client server architecture? Sorry. So client server architecture, and what are the examples for this client server architecture? Subversion STL is example for the client server architecture. But so, well, let's talk about today. We'll try with, let's create a GitHub repository, and then we'll try to clone it and then push the code to the repository. So we'll look into these steps. In the meanwhile, we'll talk about staging, unstaging as well. Okay, good. So moving on to first, hope you all have created GitHub account. No? Yes. So if you haven't, just go with GitHub. That's a URL, and then sign up for account. Just enter your basic details, username, email ID, password. Well, once it is done, just go sign in. So there I have signed in. Now this is my dashboard. I can see the information, what is happening with my repository. Okay, so like there are some operations we'll talk about. Is mostly it is like what we call, these are all operations regarding pull request and forking. Okay, we'll talk about them in the future. So 3 days ago, something has been done on my repository that is like fork. Okay. So all the updates regarding your repository, your dashboard, I mean, we can see that on the dashboard. Well, anyway, don't worry about that forking. We'll talk about it in the future. Now, create a repository first. Click on new, and then so give some repository name. Let's name it something like test repo P8, P9, 60. Yeah, that's my repository name. So test repo 61, that's my repository name. And then there you have a couple of options to provide securities. So what type of repository I want to create, whether I want to create a public repository or else a private repository. So the difference between public and then private. So if you go with public repository, anyone on the internet can see this repository. Now, so once your repository is created, the repository is going to give us the URL of the repository. Okay, every repository has a unique URL. So you clone it with the help of URL. So how do you clone it? The syntax is git clone and then your repository URL. That's the syntax. I provide this URL to the developer so that developer can clone it with the help of the URL. Right. Now, developers have the URL. They can clone the repositories. They can push the code to the repository. Then what if? So you have the repository URL. So you are not a developer. Okay. Can you see my repository? Or else what I'm going to do? That repository URL. So you're going to enter in the browser your repository URL. You know, somehow you are able to find the repository URL. You enter the repository URL in the browser. Now, if you enter the repository URL in the browser, will you be able to see the repository?
Yes.
Yes, you can do it. Or else, since you know my repository URL, even you can clone it. So you can clone it and you can enter the repository in the URL browser and you can see my repository. Why? That's what is a public repository. Anyone on the internet can see my repository. But so you want to do some commits or pushes. Can you do it? No. Why? I'm going to choose as an admin, DevOps admin, I'm going to choose only these set of developers are able to commit or push the code to my repository. Okay. But then you have private repository. So what is a private repository? So you have both options, right? I can select who can see my repository, who can commit. Right? So now mostly at business level, I mean organization level, you go with private repository. Okay. So you never create public repositories, create private repository. Right. So we'll talk about this private repository creation later. So actually I'm showing just an example creating a repository. But when you go to your project level, this is not the way how you create a repository. The way you create a repository at business level is different. This is not the way. I'm just showing only for today, just for so since it's our first session. But when you go to organization level, you create repositories, something in different stage, different ways. You create organizations. Then organization means you create a project. Once after your project is created, then we create a repository in the project. Okay, well, we'll come back to that point in the future. Okay. So for the time being, go with public repository and then create a repository. So there is our repository URL. Okay. Now, so take the URL and this repository URL. So let's provide to the developer. But so that's my repository URL. And next, developers are going to clone it, right? But how they clone it? Git bash, right? So hope you have installed Git bash. If not, do it today. So go with Git bash. What is a Git bash? Git bash is nothing but Git command line. Okay. So all the Git related commands, you run it through Git command line. So if you go with, let's say, open your command prompt, your Windows command prompt, and you won't be able to run your Git commands. So that is the reason. So they have provided Git bash. Okay. Well, so now these commands, these are all bash commands, nothing but your Linux based commands. That's why they call it Git bash. So I can use ls. I can use all the commands, bash related commands. I can use pwd. So everything, right? Now, as soon as you open your Git bash, what is that? What is that tilde stands for? User home directory. So, what is user home directory? Which user? What is my user? Firstly, on my Windows, I'm a user, right? So, what is my personal folder? Click on it. That is my personal folder. I can see the same thing over here. So, in Linux, it is /home /username, but on Windows, it is C users and the username. Okay. Well, so I'm going to clone a repository, and make sure you don't clone your repository to everywhere. So you create some practice folder, clone the repository to that folder only. So what might happen if you clone it? For example, this is my path. In this path, I have number of files. Okay, don't clone the repository into that path, because these files might get affected when you remove files. Okay, so when you remove files of your repository, even these files will be removed. So don't do it. Okay, that's why make some folder first. I'm going to make a folder, something mkdir, and then it is git some folder. I already have that folder, so I just use the same folder, and then that is my working directory. I have something in it, but let's remove everything. Let's clean the folder. So these are all bash commands, right? Remove and then so pwd mkdir. Well, done. So we have nothing in it. Now I have created a new folder, and which is an empty folder. Well, so let's clone it. Git clone, and then repository URL. Take the URL. Enter. Now, while I clone the repository, do I need to enter the credentials? Say I have cloned it, right? I have cloned as a developer. Is it correct? For example, you know my repository URL. So you are not my developer, but you have cloned it. Now, while I clone it, so while I was not prompted to enter any credentials, right? What? That's a public repository. That is the meaning of public repository. Anyone can clone my repository. But if you want to push it, you must have the credentials and the permissions. Okay. Well, now it was cloned without any issues, without any credentials. What was the repository name? Test repo 61, and change my repository, change directory. Now we are in the repository. We are in the working copy. What is the confirmation that we are in the working copy? Master. Right. So what do you mean by master? So repositories in Git or any other repositories, so they follow a concept called branches. Okay. So what is a branch? Branch is like, it's a kind of a folder. For the time being, you understand that's like a folder, and into the folder developers do commits. But technically we don't call it a folder, but time being this is a master, it's a branch. But how do you create branches? Where do we use the branches? How do you merge them? We'll talk all of them in the future. So wait for 3 to 4 sessions. Everything will be covered in detail. But for today, so master is a default branch. That's it. What is that branch? Why we use it? Don't worry about all these things. But the confirmation that we are in a working copy, once you enter into the CD and then your repository, you must be able to see that master. That is a confirmation that you are in the local repository or you are in the working copy. Okay. So now let me clear the screen. ls is a new repository, right? We have no files, but when you go with ls-a, list all files, there is a directory. What is that? .git. Let's open the directory. .git. So we have some files and directories in it. Let me open a file which is config file. So what is that config file? So did we clone a repository? So what was the repository URL? That's my repository URL. Okay, and this is something called branch. Okay, that's why don't worry about too much as of now. Look at this only. So what is that? Repository URL. Since I have used that URL to clone my repository, I can see that in my config file. So that is URL. Okay. So where the URL comes into the picture when you push it. Okay, we'll talk about that in few minutes. Now just close the file and then go back. Now you are again back to master. Right. So clear it. Now let's create our own files. As a developer, I like to create some files. Something like create a file. The file is created. There is a file. So what's next? Add it. But I don't know what needs to be done next. Or else I can use a command called git status. So what the status command does? This status command gives the file statuses which are not yet committed. For example, this is the file. Is the file is committed yet? No, right? So or else I have 10 files. Among those 10 files, 8 files are committed, 2 files are not yet committed. And how many file statuses I see in the status? 2 files. Why not all the files? Other 8 files are already committed. So git status gives you files which are not only committed. If they are committed, they won't be under the status. Anyway, first look at the status. Now that's the status. What is the status of the file? Untracked. So file status is untracked. So that's a file. And also you have a color representation in Git, which is in red color. If you see any file in red color, the file is untracked. Now what is untracked? Before you understand untracked, then there is a message called git add and then file name. So what we call it? Staging. We call it staging. Okay, we don't know, but anyway, let's run that command. Now when you are not sure about what needs to be done next in Git, simply use git status command. It is going to give you help. This is a file and this is the command you need to run next. Now that is what I'm going to run next. Okay, well, so let's try that and then we'll again look into the file status. Now, is it too chilled? Is the temperature is okay? Yes. Because I see some people are sleeping. Okay, don't fall asleep. Git status. So what is the status? Sorry, see, you disturb my session. So if you want to sleep, you can sleep. Don't disturb me. Okay. Good. Git status, and then go with git add, and then file name. Enter the file name. So git add in the file name. You can add that file one by one. So let's say I have some number of files, file 1 and file 2, so on. But I have number of files to add. Yes, I can use dot. So it is going to add all the files which are in your working copy. That is what dot stands for. What is dot stands for? Working copy, right? From local copy. Well, so use that dot. I can check the status. So what is the status now? Status is this file is ready to be committed. And how do you commit it? So we'll talk about that. But this is another command. So what is this command? Use this command for the purpose of, well, I run the command, then we'll go with explanation. Well, let me clear the screen. Hope the last rows able to see the screen. If you're not able to see the screen, let me know. Now let's go with, so git remove hyphen cached and then the file name. What is the message? RN. RN stands for remove. What is the file remove?
Only cache.
Correct. Now look at the status again. So what is the status now? The file is again untracked. So we have removed the file. But from where did we remove the file? Cache. Now when you added that, where the file was added to? Cache. So this is what we call staging unstaging. So how do you stage it? Using git add and then file name. File name. This is what we call stage. And how to unstage it? Git remove hyphen cache and then the file name. So now why we should stage unstage? You're not sure? So look at here. What is the file status is? Untracked or unstaged, right? Okay, if I add that file now and then check the status, what is the file status is? To be committed. So this file now can be committed. Previously, was I able to commit it? Why? It's not in the cache. So why we add files to the cache? So if you want to commit files, then you add files to the cache and then you can commit it. Okay. So where this is useful, the staging unstaging concept. So let's say I have created about 10 files, some 10 files I have. Then among these 10 files, let's say first I have added all files. How many files I have staged? 10 files. After I stage it, then I have changed my mind. I don't want to commit 2 files. I want to commit only 8 files. See, if I commit now, let's say I'm committing it. If I commit it, how many files will be committed? All 10 files will be committed. But after adding, so I change my mind. I don't want to commit other 2 files. So what do I do? Remove the files from the cache, or you can say unstage them. So what are the files? File 9 and then file 10, unstage them, then you commit it. Now in this example, how many files will be committed now? 8 files. So that is the purpose of staging and unstaging. So this type of concept, you cannot find it in Subversion type of repositories, because Subversion follows client server architecture. So the repositories, wherever they follow DVC's architecture, they have this advantage, staging unstaging. This is another advantage we have with DVC's architecture or GitHub or Git architectures. Okay, and if you get that question, this is also one point needs to be mentioned. What are the advantages of DVC's architecture? Okay, the first advantage was, yeah, but maintain the load. That's the first thing. And second thing is staging unstaging. That's the second point. Good. Now back to the status. What is the status? So file can be committed now. Let's commit it. And you see the color. Previously it was in red color. Now it's in green color. But and then go with git commit -m. M stands for message. And the double quotation, you can give some message, any message. Let's say I have created file, something like hello file. Now commit it. So once after this was committed, and there is, what is that? Yeah. You see some number, right? What is that number? Okay, let's say git log. Yes, that was the commit ID. But as I said, commit ID has to be something like this, right? Yes, of course that is, but so here it shows the first 7 digits. It's all same. Okay, so that's my commit ID. And then who is the developer? Why dev to, why not something else? Now that is also, we'll come back to that point. And developer to email ID and plus date and time. Now, what is the date and time? Is it my local time or is it remote repository time? Local time. Hope everyone understand what? Local, yes. Commits are only happening on local repository. So if there is a developer is sitting in somewhere in other CST or EST time zone, then so the time will be according to on his local time zone. That means on his local system, not on the remote repository time. Okay. Well, now we also have committed. There is a log, and now you check the file status or your repository status. I mean. So what is the status is? Nothing to commit. Working tree clean. That means your local repository is clean. Okay. So then, but we have one more message. Now your branch is ahead of so and so, but this is upstream is gone. Okay. What is that message? What do you mean by branch means? That means our local repository. Consider that as a local repository. Our local repository is ahead. What do you mean by ahead? Before. So we have committed, but that is not yet pushed. That is the meaning of we are ahead of one commit. Some changes we have it locally, but those changes have not been pushed to the remote repository yet. That is what is the message. Well, let's go with push it. How to push it? Git push. Now, push. Now, while I push it, is it prompting for credentials? Yes. Username. Enter the username. So what are these credentials? I'm using my user credentials. Okay, I'm using my user credentials. But so we have not gone to that security part yet. Okay, as of now, so just use your account credentials to push it. But if there is a developer, how is going to push it? What kind of credentials we're going to provide? We'll talk about them. But for the time being, you just understand the life cycle. Use your account credentials to push it. But username and so password. So was it pushed? Successfully pushed. Now you can see that. So that was pushed successfully. And then just open my remote repository. This is a repository. Refresh. Now, there is a file, and then there is a commit. Click on the commit, and so there I can see so the file, and that's a commit, right? Click on the commit. So here you can see which developer, and then what was the commit ID, and also you can see when it was committed. Now this time it says 4 minutes ago, right? What is that time now? So I have pushed it, right? I have committed and then pushed it. Now it shows that it was done about 4 minutes ago. Was it a push time or commit time? That is still commit time. So there is nothing called push time in the repository, GitHub repository. So everything is committed time. Okay, remember. So that's a file as well. We can see the file. That's a file. Now moving on to, let's go with commit number of files. I've committed only one file, but let's go with number of files. I'm getting about 5, 1, 2, 3. So there we have. So status, check this status. So we have 3 files which are untracked. Now what's next? Git add and then dot. So all files are
working period, whatever in working space.
yes. So I'm adding all the files in my working directory. Okay. There. Git status. The file statuses are ready to commit. So now I can commit these status. But now these files, see, so this command is different, right? So previously we had a command called git remove -- cached. So you can use that command or this command, both are same. But since we don't know what is the head, what is the reset, so don't worry about that. Okay. Now I can use, but that command and this command both are same. But moving on to now, among these 3 files, I want to commit only file 1 and 2, but not file 3. Now in this example, let's say 3 files have been staged. Now I commit it. How many files will be committed? 3 files. But I want to commit file 1 and file 2. So just remove git rm. So one second, check the status again. Status. So git rm -- cached and then unstage the file name. Check the status again. So file 1 and 2 are staged. File 3 is not yet staged. Okay. Now let's commit it. So git commit -m and then let's say added 2 files. I just say 2 files. I don't mention the file names. I mentioned only 2 files, but what are the files? We don't know. Just give some message there. Now log. What is the log? That's the commit ID, username, okay, and then date and time. How many files added? 2 files. But do I know what files are added? No. But how do you know that in the future what files are added? Okay. Now that is, so we'll talk about it. And what is the status then? Status is your branch is ahead of how many commits? 1 commit. So we have done a commit, but that is not yet pushed. That is the meaning of we are ahead of 1 commit, and plus there is a file which is untracked. Okay, the file is untracked. Now if I push it, so how many files will be pushed? Only 2 files. Whatever has been committed, only that will be pushed. Git push username and then the password. So now check the status. So what is the status is your branch is up to date with origin master. Now what do you mean by origin master? So your branches means our local repository is up to date with origin master. Means we are up to date with your remote repository. Okay. So let me check that. So previously, when I was checking the log, you remember this? Before I was committing it, and there you see origin master, right? That origin master was at the first log, right? This was our first log. There you see that origin master. But latest, after I push that in the latest logs, let's check this status again. Log, I mean log. This origin master, it was here, but now it is moved to the latest log. Why? Have you been observing these things? Right? So now what happened previously? So before I have pushed it, the second push I mean, The origin master was at this commit, right? At this commit. Now after I do that commit, so the origin master is moved to the latest commit. And then if I check the status, I see that your branch is up to date with origin master. Can someone tell me?
So we have two commit IDs.
Yeah, of course we have two commit IDs.
Which one is?
But why that origin is moving? Origin master is moving. Previously it was this commit ID, now it is moved to the other commit ID. Update? What do you mean? What update? So very simple. See, you understand that. So before that, that is almost correct. You see, before commit, sorry, before push, I mean. So where was the push? I was pushing it, right? Before it was pushing, did I say commit? Sorry. Before it was pushed, what was the origin then? At the first commit ID. After I push it, now his origin is moved to the latest commit or not? And then when I check the status, I see that our origin master is up to date. That means we have pushed all the updates to the remote repository. Okay, I have 10 commits, right? So now among all the 10 commits, I want to see till how many commits I have pushed it. How do I know that? Using origin master. Okay, so let's find out on your remote repository now. Refresh. So now I have 2 commits, and what is the latest commit? Added 2 files. But I want to see how many files are added, how many files are committed. File 1, file 2. Okay, in the logs on the GitHub repository, it shows what files are added in that particular log. Okay, well, so now we have another file, right? File 3. Let's add that file. Git add, and then what next? Git commit. So let's say file 3, and then so if I check the status, what? Sorry, log. I mean log. Where is the log? In origin master is at this. So what does it mean? Till this commit, I mean whatever the commits we have before that, all these commits were pushed. The commits above, you see that origin master, are they pushed? No. Now if I push it, and this origin master will move to the latest commit. That is how you understand how many commits we have pushed, how many commits we have not pushed. Okay, so by looking at the status, let's look at the status again. Git status. So what is the status? We are ahead of 1 commit. That means compare with origin master. That means compare with your remote repository. Our local repository is ahead of 1 commit. So how do you know? You can see this, or else you can see here. If I do another commit, let's say, so touch, I'm creating file 4, and what are the steps? Git add, and then git commit. So file 4, and then check the log. Origin is still at the same point, but after that origin, how many commits we have done? 2 commits. And from this point and all the commits, I mean until that point, until that commit, all the commits were already pushed. Okay, so now we understand what is the origin master, but what is that head master?
Already committed.
Already committed. Someone said something. Yeah, what was that? Latest commit. So that's our latest commit. So what is our latest commit? That's our latest commit. Or you can say currently what is my commit ID I'm working with. So what is my commit ID? Latest commit ID is I'm with this commit ID. That means we have a chance of moving the commits to the other commit IDs which are in the past. We can move that local head to the other commits. In what concept? So why do I change the versions? Can I change the version, commit ID, version, both are same or not? Yes. Can I change the head or can I change the current working commit ID to the past commit IDs? What do we call that concept? Version controlling. Why do we go with version controlling? If you want to revert the changes back you have done in the past, then do we change the versions or not?
Yes.
Now at that time you will be able to see that heads will be changed to other versions as well. Able to concentrate? So understand these points. These are the important points. You must be able to understand what is origin master, what is the head. Otherwise, you won't be able to do version controlling. You don't understand that version control. Okay. Right. So now origin master. Let's push it. Push it. This origin master will be pointing to the latest. Okay. Let's go with it. So git push. Username, password, and so here you can see what is that 6, yeah, right? Yeah, there you see that message. What was that commit ID? The commit ID. So that means from this commit ID till this commit ID we have pushed. So every message you see in this history or in this when you run any command, all these messages important for us to understand. Okay, why this is a message? What is that? What is that master? Master leave that point for understand these commit IDs. Previously we are at this. Now that is being pushed to this commit ID. Is it our latest commit ID? That's my latest commit ID. Then we check the status. Sorry, log I mean. Check the log. Origin master. Okay. So you want to check your remote repository. That's not required, but you can check it.
So why did you take the first one, sir?
Sorry?
You did not take the commit ID of the first one, but the second one. Recently, pushed one from there to the last one.
Yeah.
But did not take the first one. Like create a file, you did not take the commit ID of that.
No, say why this commit ID means. So till this commit ID, did we push it or not?
Yes.
Right? That was a message. Previously, you have commits pushed until this commit ID. So from that commit ID to this commit ID, we have pushed. So how many pushes? I mean, till what commit ID we have pushed it? This commit ID, right? Yes or no? You see that origin master?
Yes. Second time.
So forget about first and second time. Look at the origin. Okay. So till this commit ID, we have pushed it. So now from there, I am pushing, right? From this point to this point, your origin is changed. That is the meaning of it. We are pushing from that commit ID. Whatever the commits we have from this till the latest, we have pushed. That is the meaning of that. Okay. It does not take the previous ones. It takes the latest. What is the latest origin? So this is the latest origin. Before it was pushing. After pushing, this is the origin now. That's the meaning. Okay. So, well, so far it's all easy. But let's look at the logs. When I look at the logs, you see some username, right? You see some username and then some email ID. Why that username? Why that email ID? Why not something else? Why not developer one? Why not other names? See, these are what we call Git configurations. Okay. For example, we are all developers. So there are about 30 developers, right? And every developer, when they commit it, I want to record their developer name. If I'm committing it, I'm a developer 1. So if you are committing it, developer 2, developer 3, developer 4. I want these developer names to be appeared in those logs. Since I'm a developer 1, it's developer 2, I'm a developer. But how that name is appeared in the configurations in the logs. So this is loaded through the Git configurations. We call it Git configurations. What is Git configurations means? So this is our Git bash, right? So where are we running the commands from? Git bash. So your Git bash has some local configurations, its own configurations. It's loading those usernames from that configuration. We call it Git global configurations. In that Git global configurations, git config -- list, you can see your Git configurations. So what is the configuration? User.name plus user.email. Okay. So what are they? So here we're talking about Git configurations. User.name was equals to some developer name, and then user.email is some email ID. For example, I want to change these usernames to something else. How do I change it? Git, the commands are, these are what we call Git configuration commands. If you want to see the configuration list, the command was git config -- list. And then if you want to change the configurations, git config -- global plus the parameter name, attribute name. What is that? User.name, it's a standard name. That's a parameter, that's an attribute. So user.name is your required username. You can give any username, something like, let's say, developer 1. And then, so another parameter, git config -- global user.email. What was that? Something, but that has to be in email format. So these two configuration needs to be set up first. Since in my case I already have set them up, but in your case, when you install your Git bash, after you install your Git bash and you are doing a first commit. So when you do your first commit, it won't allow you to do the commits. Why? This list or the values of these parameters are empty. They are blank. So for example, I'm a user. I have installed my Git bash for the first time on my local. So if I install Git bash for the first time, then I'm trying to commit it. But will it allow me to do it? No. Why? Those attributes, user.name, user.email values are empty. You set the values, then it will allow you to do commit. Otherwise, it is going to throw a message saying that, so run these two commands to set the configurations. That is what I'm doing now. Okay, let's run them. So what are the commands? Git config -- global user.name and then some username dev1, and then git config -- global user.email, so some email. Now, so we go with, let's create some files. Okay, let's go with create some file, and then git add, and then git commit. So what will be the username in the logs? Check the log. So what is the username? Step 1. Okay. So previously it was dev2, since I already have set them up. But so initially from your side, once you install your git bash, run these two commands so that you can check your git configurations for username as well as email ID. Otherwise, it is going to throw a message that these configurations not been set up. You set it up first, then you commit it. So why? Because initially these values are empty. Okay, that is the reason. Yeah.
Who is going to configure that? Developer.
So not developer, actually whoever installs that git bash. Usually these git bash is installed by the administrators. These are Windows, right? So you have Windows administrators, they set it up. Okay. So once these Windows admins, they set up this git bash. So the developers won't be able to do it because they won't be given access to do it. Because if you are a developer, if you're able to do it, you can change anything, right? So you won't be given access to do it. Okay. So these configurations actually, so now here we are changing these files, right? Config files. So these are nothing but there is a file for the git configurations. Okay, let me show you that file. But I don't remember that file in path. Just a second. Let me open what happens when you do those configurations somewhere in program files, and then what? Git. So I don't remember that config file path. Usually that has to be command. No, that's not in command. There is a file actually. Is it here? No, that's not in here. Don't remember the file path. It must be somewhere in etc or 1 second. That's not in etc. So that file. So when you add these configurations, that file, config file, git config --- list, all these configurations are loaded from that config file. There is a config file. You can find that config file. Is the path is over here? Can you see the path? No, that's not here. With certification, no, the path is not there. We can Google it. We can get the file path. But these commands will be adding some configurations in that config file. So we are not doing any kind of so what we call when we are not running commands. We are running commands, but those commands in the back end. So we'll be adding some changes in the git configuration file. Now, where is that file actually? That file is in C drive, right? C program files. You are doing some changes in C program files, but you have not into your Windows as an administrator. Then will you be able to do it? That's why that is done by your administrators. So there is a logic for everything, right? So if you're able to, if developers are able to do it, what is the purpose of administrators then? Right? The security is maintained in that way. Okay. So far we have gone through how do we create files, how do you commit it, and how do you change these configurations. Let's move on to let's modify the files. Let's modify it and we'll try to remove that. So how do you do that? So simple. Before that, it's always good practice. Try to get the status. If you want to push it, that's better practice to push all the changes. Okay. So you can push it, but I'm not pushing it. That's okay. And then take a file. This is a file. So I'm writing some code in here as a developer. Something. Well, save it. And then now what is the file status? Changed. the file status is modified, changed. Yes. So now the message changes are not staged. So is it like, can I say that the file is unstaged? But why it is not showing a message called untracked?
Already pushed the
File is. Yes. So there is a difference between untracked versus unstaged. There is a difference. So when the file status is untracked, so if the file is created for the first time, the file status is untracked. Now when it is unstaged, the file was already committed, but this is modified. Then the status is unstaged. That's the difference between untracked versus unstaged. But whether this is untracked or unstaged, you must stage it. How to stage it? Git add. So that is what is the message. Stage it first, add it first. So git add. Now, so I use dot, but in this working path, all these files were already committed, right? Now, how many files will be committed? Sorry, how many files will be staged? Only one file, which is under modified stage. Okay, and then look at the status again. So what's the status? It is added, and that is to be committed. But if I want to unstage it, again you can go with git remove ---- cached. So in your versions, you won't be able to see this message. So this kind of message we used to get it. The version I'm using is Git 2.3. The latest is 2.8. In 2.8 version, you don't see this message. Okay, even you don't see these warnings. That's why I'm not going through them. Okay, so now go with git commit. So go with git status and then git commit. So let's say hello file modified. The file is modified, committed, I mean. Now check the logs. Origin is at this point. After that origin, we have done 2 commits. There you can see these commits. Okay. So now I can push it. Git push origin. Sorry, don't use origin. Just go with git push. Username. Password. So everything is pushed. There we have commits, and check the commit, and then file modified. But I want to see how many lines have been modified. So you can see there. So the lines with plus marks next to them, those lines are added. If you see any lines with minus, those lines are deleted. Okay, so that is how you identify what lines are added, what lines are deleted. And so how do you remove files then? Git rm and file name. Now you understand the difference between git remove versus git remove ---- cache. Git remove and then file name. What's the difference between these two?
only cache totally
Yes. So git remove ---- cache is removed from the cache, and then if you go with rm, that file is physically removed. So the file is removed physically. Now if I remove the file physically, is it removed from the cache? untracked. So file is removed itself. File is removed from the cache. Okay. So when you remove a file, the file is also unstaged. But if you want unstage only, you can unstage it. But when you remove the file, file is removed as well as it is unstaged. That means when I remove files, do I need to stage the files again?
Yes.
You stage the file. So if you want to stage the file, first of all, you should be able to see the file, right? Where is the file? So it's not required. The file is physically removed. How do you stage it again? Okay. So go with git commit. So file 1 deleted. So that's deleted. So we have modified, we have deleted as well. But I want to get those files back. I want to revert the changes. So by mistake, I have deleted some other file, or else I have modified some wrong changes. So revert. How that revert works. So first, go with take a file, some file. I go with hello file. Open the file, insert. Adding some lines. So you can add anything. Even this is not Java code. Looks like Java, but no. Well, so I have added some lines here, and then save it. Now, so what is the file status?
Modified.
Modified, unstaged. So you just stage it. Okay. So before I stage, I don't want to commit the changes. I don't want to stage the changes. How to do it? Or else that is my file. My file has some hundreds of lines. Among those hundreds of lines, I have modified some 50, 60 lines, something. So did I save the file? Yes, I have saved the file as well. Once I open the file again, I don't remember what lines I have modified, because I have modified number of lines. Now I want to revert all the changes I have done. Okay, how do I do that? Now the condition is file is being modified but not yet committed. That's a condition. Okay. Should check the file status again. What's the file status? It is unstaged. Then I use git stash. So what git stash does? Enter. So what it has done? Your working copy has been saved, and index status is so something, but what is that? Before I do that, now open the file again. The changes are gone. So I have modified some lines. Those changes are deleted now. But what changes are deleted? Only the changes which I have modified. Okay, or you can say changes which I have not committed. How Git knows these are the lines you have modified?
ID.
What ID?
Commit.
Which commit?
Whenever you have committed whatever the file, that only notice.
How it is noticed?
We have already committed, so it will take that commit.
So, yeah, but you see that all the changes are saving from the previous commit ID. Latest commit ID. So look at here. When I check the logs, what is my latest commit ID? D0 something. So it is saving all the files from the latest commit. all the changes you have as it is are restored again. That is what is stashing. Stashing means it removes all the changes which you have modified but not committed. So all the changes are replaced from the latest commit. But what the changes meant, the change, see, git stash is going to remove the changes only if those changes are not committed. If those changes are committed, git stash does not remove the changes. Why? Not sure? Latest commit ID. That's the concept of stash. So git stash stashes or restores the changes from the latest commit. So if you commit them, what it is going to stash it?
Change.
Nothing, right? From the same commit ID again. So let's do that now. Modify that again. Just modify something. Save it, and then go with git add. If I add it, can I stash it? If I add it, can I go for stash? Yes. Why? Simple concept. This is added but not staged. Sorry, that is not committed. This is only staged. Okay. So go with commit now, and then so hello file modified, and then check the log. What is the latest commit? That's the latest commit. In this latest commit, so did we modify the file? Hello file was modified. Yes. Okay. Now try to stash it. No local changes to save, because after that commit, no changes have been done. Which commit? The latest commit. That is the purpose of stash. But what if they are committed? Now this change is committed, right? But I want to revert that change. How do I do that? We'll talk about that in the next session on Monday. So correct. We'll go to the previous commits, then we revert them. Okay, we have different commands. That's correct. So that is version controlling concept. Now, for today, what you try is you also try this stash concept if you remove the files. So remove some files. Git remove, and then can I stash it? Try that. Okay, you're going to try that. So hope you have set up your git bash, right? So if you have not done it, so do setup first. Setup means you set up git bash. Also create an account on git bash. Well, then you create a GitHub repository and create a public repository. Okay, GitHub public repository, and then you run the life cycle. That means clone till push. So in the meanwhile, you also try this. So create about 5 files and add. So but commit only commit just 4 files. And then you know the concept, staging, unstaging. And then try with git stash. So modify and then remove files, then stash the changes. You modify the files, you remove files. Even you can try for create it. Okay, see what happens if you create them. So I have created a file. Can I stash a file if the file is created? So let me know these two. Remove and then create. Can I stash it? Okay. So try these examples and then get hands-on with these commands, all the commands, syntaxes, where you use and how to use them. And then, so regarding tomorrow's session, so you know the time tomorrow, it's 8:30. So Saturday and Sunday.
Without doing git configuration, how do we get it
Finish. Okay, that's it. So Saturday, Sunday, you have weekend sessions, and the time is 8:30. 8:30 to around 10:15 or 10:30. Be prepared, but it's 10:20 something around. Okay, but make it 10:30. So that's your time for tomorrow. And online students, you'll be sent a new link. So probably somewhere in today, sometime. Okay. And then classroom students can come to classroom, same classroom. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Questions?
without configuring?
So I did not say to talk. I asked you to ask questions. Right? Yeah.
Without doing git configuration, how do we do that in practice? I do not ask for configuration.
No, you cannot do commits if you don't set up the configurations. Okay. So you first set the configurations. Even if you don't do it, that's okay. It is going to throw some errors. Set this. It is going to give those commands as well in the syntax.
But we don't know how to configure that.
That's the reason you are here. Okay. So it is going to throw errors. That's okay. Even if you don't set it up, it is going to throw some errors saying that this is what you need to do. This is what you need. Yeah. Sorry. What is that? What you did not understand? Git stash? Yeah. Git stash? Yeah. What did you tell me? What you did not understand? Did you understand that stash is going to restore the changes from the latest commit? Yeah. So stash, you whatever the changes you do, and then, for example, what is the file status now? So we have deleted a file, right? I want to stash it. So I can restore it. Stashing means restoring it. From where it is going to restore it? It is going to restore the changes from latest commit. In that latest commit, the file was existing. It is going to restore the files as whatever it was in that commit ID. All the files will be restored. That is what is stashing. Restoring from latest commit. That's what is stashing.
Sir, the restore is from the local repository or from the remote?
Only local commit, not from the remote. Okay, only from the local, not from the remote. All the commands we run, they takes place on the local repository, not on the remote repository. There is only one command, two commands. So push and also
Updating.
only push. That's it. Pull is not on the remote repository. Only push is the only command which is executed on the remote repository side. Any other command, you run them on the local repository only. Okay. So whether you create a file, you commit it, all these commands on local repository. And the purpose of push is just the changes you have done, you're just pushing all the changes. But if you want to pull it, we will talk about that pull. But pull is nothing but updating. Update also takes place on local repository.
So,
Yeah.
Git stashing in modify the original status, the required file, not only the recent one.
No, that's not possible using stash. Stash is going to stash or revert all the changes from the recent commit. That's it.
We can do it with modify the original, the required or specific file.
No, because it takes the commit ID. It takes the commit ID. But if you want to restore it, so you have a concept called revert concept. Revert. So by using revert, so our restore, we can restore our required files.
You can restore any commit ID.
Yeah. That's all. Thank you.